the Gemara was contrasting Shabbat to the Mishnah Shabbat to the Mishnah Shavuot, if you recall. The Mishnah Shabbat mentioned the multi-cases, the different cases, right, Mr. Haber? We mentioned the different cases of, is that chair better for you, Mr. Haber, or no? The different cases of carrying. Biblical violations or cases that a person could violate that might violate the Torah's prohibition. As we said, there's one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat. You can't write on Shabbat, right? You can't write with a pen on Shabbat. You can't take an item from private property to public property or public property to private property on the holy day of Shabbat. Now, there are certain cases the Mishnah says that are biblically prohibited, and there are certain cases that are rabbinically prohibited. And our Mishnah spoke of those type of cases. The Mishnah Shavuot, morning Simon, the Mishnah Shavuot did not speak about all the cases. It was much shorter. The Mishnah Shavuot only mentioned 4 cases, 2 that are 4. In Shabbat, it says 2 that are 4 but for the guy inside, 2 that are 4 for the guy outside. So the Mishnah Shabbat lists 8 cases, in contrast to the Mishnah Shavuot that lists only 4 cases. And the Gemara wants to know why. What's the reason for this difference? And the Gemara said that Rav Papa said, here, Masechta Shabbat, which is the focus of the laws of Shabbat, so we talk about Chiyuvei Elam Rav Papa. If we go back to Elam Rav Papa, Elam Rav Papa at the bottom of 2b2 in the French. Do we have it, David? Elam Rav Papa?
Yeah.
Rav Papa says the following. He says, Halacha D'ika Shabbatu. Here, it's the main laws of Shabbat, Tani Chiyuvei Upturei. Since it's the main laws of Shabbat, so we talk about the Chiyuvei, we talk about cases where you be Chayav, cases where you violate the Torah on a Torah level, and we'll talk about cases where you're not violating on a Torah level, we'll talk about Pturei. But Hatam, however, over there, in Shavuot, where it's the Lavika Shabbatu, the tractate of Shavuot is not the main focus on the laws of Shabbat. So therefore, Chiyuvei Tanei, it only discusses Chiyuvei, it only discusses cases that are forbidden from the Torah, and Peturei Lo Tani, and cases where you're exempt, that you're not violating the Torah law, we're not interested in telling you over there. In the Masechta, Simon, we are on Bet 2b2. 2b2 on the right side of the page. And then the Gemara says, Chiyuvei manenu. So now the Gemara says, what are the chiyuvim? What are the cases that should be cases that are violating the Torah? In the cases, because the Mishnah says Yitziot. It says in the Mishnah Yitziot HaShabbat. Yitziot HaShabbat indicates going out. Going out means, it sounds like you're going from private. If I say you're going out, you're going to the store. Where are you going from? You go from the public to private, usually you go from private to public. So Yitziot and Yitziot Tarti Havayin. There's only 2 cases of violating the Torah by going out, by taking an item out, right, David? What are the 2 cases? The guy in the inside hands it to the guy outside, but the guy in the outside takes it out of the hand of the guy inside and brings it outside. There's no 4 cases on a Torah level of violating going from inside to out. And the Mishnah says Yitziot HaShabbat. The going out is 4. 2, that's 4. Where's the 4? Where's the 4 in the Masechta Shavuot of obligation? There's only 2 going out obligations. If you say that the 2 that are 4, 2 are biblical, 2 are rabbinic, so then I can fit that in. But 4 that are violating the Torah, going from inside outside, where's there 4? The Gemara says, you know what? The other two are going from outside inside. Cases going from inside taken out, and two cases going from outside inside. The poor man outside hands something to the guy inside, or the guy inside takes something out of the poor man's hand and brings it inside. That's another two cases of violating Torah level. So I got four cases that are violating the Torah level. Is that clear? But the Gemara says, but what do you mean? But the Mishnah Shavuot says Yitziot HaShabbat. We're talking about cases of going out. Going out means it seems to imply going from private to public. And now you're telling me Yitziot does not just mean private to public, it means private to public and public to private. But doesn't Yitziyah means going out from private to public? So the Gemara says the word Yitziyah has the ability to refer to both something going from private to public, or if Simon's outside in the street with his motorcycle morning and he comes into the shul and he brings his helmet into the shul, so the helmet, you could say the helmet, he went from out, it went out. Where did it go out? It went out from the street to the shul. So going out, one Adam, does not only mean going from private to public. When an item goes from public to private, it left the public domain and it went out. Where'd it go? Went out from public. Let's say you left your something in the street, and now something was in the street the whole night. Now it went out from the street into the what? Into the house. So you could also refer the going into a house when an item leaves public and goes into private. It's also it went out. It went out from the domain that it was. That's what the Gemara wants to say. We're on 2b2 on the right side. So the Gemara says that the Gemara's question was, the Gemara says, let's see, Shtayim dosa, what are the four? The Gemara had the question, there's only two cases of what is going out. So the Gemara says, no, I got four. Shtayim dosa, two cases of going from inside out. Ushtayim nachnasa, two cases of going from outside in. So I got four cases that there are biblical violations. So the Gemara says, Vayitziot tani, but it says in the Mishnah going out, which sounds like going from private to public. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi, Tana, the author of the Mishnah in Shavuot, Hachnasa, going in, taking something from outside, bringing is also called a hotzah. It went out, correctly. He also calls it hotzah. And therefore, we could explain the Mishnah in Shavuot, two that are four, means there are four cases of biblical violation, two for the guy going in out, two for the guy in the inside, two going from in to out, the two going from out to in. Now the Gemara says, Mimai, where could you prove this concept? You're saying a very interesting idea. You're saying that going from outside to inside, which is bringing inside, is also called going out. That's not the simple way you people will talk, right, Adam? Do you say when you take something from outside in, it went out from outside? You just say you brought it in. So the Gemara says, I'll show you. Where do we find that? Miditnan. We learned in the Mishnah later on. The Mishnah says, Hamotzi merishut l'rishut. The Mishnah makes a statement. If you went ahead and you take something, you bring something out from one domain to another domain, the Mishnah states chayav. If you do that unintentionally, I did not know today was Shabbat, or I did not know I can't carry on Shabbat. I didn't know this is considered as a public place. There's no Eruv, and there was no ability to make an Eruv here. It was a public place. I didn't know. He's obligated to bring a korban chatat. What the chatat? It's a sin offering for violating the what? The Shabbat. And if you want to send to everybody that we're on. So if a guy goes and he carries from one domain to another domain, the Mishnah states he's chayav. Now, what does the Mishnah mean? When the Mishnah states this rule, going from one domain, hamotzi merishut to rishut, if you go carry something from one domain to another domain, you're chayav. Does the Mishnah mean specifically if you're going from inside out? We know the law of carrying from one domain to another. We know the law is not only if a person takes something from private to public, he's obligated to korban. If he goes from public to private, he's also, if you take something from the street and you bring it into your house, it's also a biblical violation, and he would have to bring a karma chatat, the sin offering. So we know that's the fact. Now the Mishnah, when he wants to tell us that law, that you would be a chayav, a chatat, a sin offering for carrying from public to private and private to public, he refers to it, he describes it if it goes out from one domain to another domain. So we see clearly that even going from public to private is also referred to as going out. And therefore the Gemara says, Milo Askinan, aren't we talking about that the Kama'ayil Meshut Rabim, Meshut Yachid? Aren't we talking about that you also bringing something from public to private, and yet we could correlate outside, and yet he calls it going out. So that's what the Gemara says. Now the Gemara says the time of mine. Okay, you're telling me that the author of the Mishnah would refer to taking something from public, bringing it into private. He'll call it went out. But what does it mean it went out? Didn't it go enter in? So the Gemara says, "Kol akirat chifetz mkomo." When you uproot an item from its place, if you, what do you say, David? It's called Tana. It's called going out. It went out. It went from public to private. Tana hotza karele. The Tana calls it hotza. Tana calls that it went out. Okay. Amar Ravina. Ravina says, Matnitin nami daika. The Mishnah, our Mishnah also seems to imply this idea as well. Meaning, we could see from our Mishnah that the Tana of Mishnayot has no problem referring to something going from outside in as hotza, as going out. Why? Because the Tani, it says in the Mishnah, we are now on 2B3. How's your French doing, Adam? Oh, very good. Tana, it's clear. You got the English. It's clear. It's good. It's working on your phone.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the Gemara says, maybe you should make a couple of hard copies.
Yeah.
You can make a couple of hard copies. Yeah. Okay. The Gemara says, the Tani in the Mishnah it says Yitziyot, right? The Mishnah opens up Yitziyot HaShabbat, right? How does our Mishnah here in the Masechta Shabbat open up? What's the name of the parak, by the way? Yitziyot HaShabbat. It says Yitziyot HaShabbat, and it says 2 that are 4 for the guy inside, 2 that are 4 for the guy outside, and it opens up with the poor man standing outside and giving something to the guy inside. So we see that the Mishnah opens up, it says the word Yitziyah going out, and it describes a case of something coming from outside in. So we see that going out is very clearly, Adam, is it clear? Is this that the Tana refers to something going from public to private. It's also called going out. And the first case that it talks about, Simon, is that clear? First case talks about is going. How's your French doing, Simon? Good.
French is not as good as the Spanish.
Okay. You know French a little bit, Simon? Sure. Okay. So he says, and the Gemara, good morning. And the Mishnah states the case, explains the case of going from public to private. That's the first case that it mentioned. So we see that Yitziyah, the word going out refers to Shmamina, refers to going from public to private as well. Now, Rava has a different approach. Rava is trying to address the question, how could we explain the word Yitziah when the Mishnah states Yitziot Shabbat, and Yitziot Shabbat with simple meaning, something that goes out, which sounds like it goes from inside out, and you're telling me it means even outside in, right? And that was the Gemara issue. And the Gemara says, by the way, the word Yitziah, going out, could refer to both going from inside out or outside in, right? That's what he said. But Rava says, Rava Amar, that the word Yitziot does not mean, we're discussing the word, the Mishnah says Yitziot HaShabbat, right, Simon? It says the Yitziot HaShabbat, the going out of Shabbat, the goings out of Shabbat. And the Gemara is till now thought, what does Yitziot HaShabbat mean? Going from private to public. And yet the Gemara explained it doesn't just mean private to public. Going out could also mean when you take something from outside and in, it's also called going out. And the Gemara had issue because doesn't seem to the simple meaning of word going out doesn't sound like from outside in. Going out usually means you're going from inside. Vayetze Yaakov miBeersheva. He went out from wherever he was in, and he went out. It's not that he came into Beersheva. It doesn't mean he came in. He went out and from somewhere else going into Beersheva. It's going out from Beersheva. And here we're saying the word Yitziah does not only mean taking an item from private to public, also means from public to private. And the Gemara was bothered by that, the usage of the word Yitziah for referring to something going from public to private. That was the issue. And the Gemara says that you can also refer to an item leaving public and going to private as Yitziah, as going out. Because why? It's going out from its place in public and it's going to private. Now, Rava says a new explanation of word Yitziah. Yitziah HaShabbat does not mean taking an item. It doesn't refer to going out, something going out, the item going out. It's not what it refers to. What does it refer to? It means the domain, the domains, the domains of Shabbat. Meaning how many domains are there that would be, that you have, and that there will be an issue of biblical issue. Meaning the domains that we're referring to regarding the malacha, regarding the prohibited act of carrying something on Shabbat, right? One of the 39 malachot on Shabbat, number 39 on the all-time list is what? Carrying an item. And how many domains, what are the domains that we are talking about that you would be violating the law of Shabbat, of this prohibition of carrying an item? There are two domains that are involved. There is the domain of private and public. Those are the two domains that are involved in this act. So Yitziot HaShabbat Shtayim. So there are two Rishiot, there are two domains that are involved in this act of carrying on Shabbat. So now we could explain the Mishnah Shavuot the following. When it says Shtayim Shehin Arba, there are two domains, meaning Rishut HaYachid and Rishut HaRabim, which through the two domains, there are four biblical violations through those two domains. There are four ways that you could be violating the Shabbat, that four ways that there could be violation of the Torah. What are the four ways that could be violation of the Torah? The guy on the inside could violate the Torah two ways, by giving something outside or taking something from out, giving outside or taking something from outside in, right? He violates two ways. And the guy on the outside could violate two ways by either giving something to the guy inside or taking from the inside and bringing it outside. So there are four ways. There are four ways that the guy on the inside and the outside could violate the Torah. Now, and now regarding our Mishnah, you could explain also two Rishuyot. There are the same thing. Good morning, Asaf. There are two domains that meaning private and public, that there'll be four violations, two for the guy inside, two of the violations will be biblical, and two of the violations will be rabbinic. And there's also two domains for the guy outside that also be two would be biblical and two would be rabbinic. So that's what the Gemara. That's Rava's explanation. Rava wants to explain the word hotza'ah, Yitziyah, does not mean going out from private to public. The word Yitziot refers to the domains that you have regarding Shabbat. Private domain, is everything clear, everybody? And the public domain. Asaf, we are now on 2B3 on the right side. Amalei Rav Matna Labaye. So Rav Matna has a question that he asked Abaye. The Mishnah stated, what did the Mishnah state? There are two cases, two that are four for the guy inside, right, David? Two for the guy, two for the four of the guy outside, right? We said there are two ways the guy inside could violate the Torah. There are two ways that the guy on the outside could violate the Torah. And there's another two that are the ways that he can violate it on a rabbinic level. There's another two ways. Each guy has two ways to violate on a rabbinic level. And each guy has two ways to violate on a Torah level, right? So it's a total of four for each guy. But the Gemara says it's more than four. The Gemara says, Amalei Ramasnab Labaye. Hatamni Havaye. The Mishnah, are you telling me there's only 8 cases? Are you telling me, meaning if you're telling me 4 and 4, that you got 8 on the deal? But really, there are how many? There are Tartis Srihavin. There's 12 cases. So why does the Mishnah only counting 2 cases for the guy, two and two for each guy? There should be 2 and 4 for each guy. Because there's another 2 cases that each one is violating rabbinically. Meaning there are 4 cases that each person is violating the Torah, the law, sorry, the rabbinic law of, what's the rabbinic law? The rabbinic law is the biblical violation of carrying on Shabbat is when you do both parts of the act. You do the uprooting of the item, which is called akira. You take it from private, and then you also place it down in public. So you did, and that's called hanacha. But if you did one part of the act, you picked it up, and you put your hand outside the street, from inside to outside, but you didn't place it in someone's hand. The other guy took it from you. So he finished off the malacha. So that's each guy did the half of the job. So that's a rabbinic violation. And if you look at the Mishnah lists there are 4 cases. There were for each guy, there are 4 cases in the Mishnah where each person only does half the job, and there are 4 cases of rabbinic violations. So if I could give you 4 scenarios of rabbinic violations, and in each of those 4 scenarios, this guy is exempt and this guy is exempt, but they both have rabbinic violations. So I got 4 for this guy and 4 for that guy. What are the 4 cases? If you look back on the Mishnah Bet and Aleph, on 2a, right? The end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah states, Pasher ha'ani et yodo lifnim, right? The poor man stretched his hand inside. But you know what? He didn't give it, he stretched the hand inside. And vinota, but he didn't give it to the guy on the inside, but the vinota balabayit mitocha. The guy on the inside took it from his hand. Case 1. Each one is exempt because each one only did one part. Case 2, or the owner of the house gave something into the hand of the poor person put his hand inside, and the balabayit made the akira, put something in his hand, and the poor man took it outside, so each guy only did the half. That's case 2. Each one is patur, but it's a rabbinic prohibition of each one. And then the Mishnah continues with another 2 cases. So we got 4 cases where each person is doing one part of the malacha. And since each person is only doing half the malacha, there's no biblical, there's no karban, there's no offering for doing one part of the malacha. You can do both. So there are 4 cases of rabbinic prohibitions. So why tell me there's 2 cases for the first guy inside biblical and 2 cases that the guy on the inside is violating rabbinic when there's really 2 plus 4 cases that are rabbinic? Is it clear? That is the Gemara's question. Why are we only counting 2 cases for rabbinic violations when the Mishnah mentioned 4 cases? That's the Gemara's question. David, is that clear? So the Gemara says, there's 12. And then the Gemara shoots back. The Gemara says, let me ask you a question. You're asking that there's more cases. So why are you only asking there's 12? There's really should be 16. Why? Because we also listed, if you recall, we listed 2 cases that the guy who did both parts is chayav, but the guy who just received it is exempt, right? So we have we have more cases. Let's say the guy on the outside, and what is the Gemara thinking? The Gemara is thinking that most probably when you receive the item, the word patur in general, in Masechta Shabbat, patur means patur of al asur. You do not violate the Torah law, but it's still patur means you're exempt from an offering. You don't have to bring the karban, right? Chayav here can mean either if he was warned and there's witnesses, he's obligated to punishment by the court, or chayav can mean if he violated the Shabbat unintentionally, he's obligated. If I didn't know I can't do that, he's obligated a korban. That's what chayav means. What does patur mean? Patur means you're exempt. There's not the punishment from the court. There's no offering of offering. You're not obligated to bring an offering, but it would seem most probably that it's patur, but it's forbidden. So why are we only counting the cases that each guy did part of the malacha? We should also count the cases when each guy did the other part that didn't do any part of the malacha. The Mishnah, we should also count that as one of those cases, especially if the Gemara is thinking that it's patur means it's patur, but it's also forbidden. So why are you only counting? Why don't you count those cases as well? It's the cases where the balabayit is chayav. There are 2 cases where the guy on the inside is chayav. Morning, Jack. There's 2 cases the guy on the outside is chayav. But at those 2 cases, the guy is chayav. The other guy is what? Patur. So you should list those cases as well. So that's what the Gemara asks. So now the Gemara says, meaning there are 2 cases for the guy on the inside, with another 6 cases. So we have 8 for the guy. We have 8 cases for the guy on the inside, and we have 8 cases for the guy outside. Even if the Gemara is thinking that the patur here means they're exempt because you're just being passive, but why don't you list it? You're listing, telling me about cases for the guy inside. You're telling me about the cases for the guy outside. So why don't you list all the cases? So the Gemara says, Amale ha lokasha. The last question is not a problem. You know why? Because now we're on Gimel Amanal, 3a. 3a1. Bavad de Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah is patur umutar. That case, when the owner of the house gives it to the poor man on the outside, the poor man on the outside did nothing regarding the violation of Shabbat. He was not involved. He did not do any part of the malacha. He did not do the akira. He did not uproot it. He did not place it. He did not uproot it, and he did not place it down. He didn't do any part. He just received it. Because he just received it, that's not called, we're not going to count, that's not called a case that we're going to count that he did something wrong regarding the laws of Shabbat. Tosfos asked the question, what do you mean? And the Gemara says, patur umuta, it's permitted. What does it mean it's permitted? Right? The Gemara says, Baba the Resha, patur umuta lo katani. Something that's exempt and permitted, we're not counting. We're only counting cases that actually patur, they might be exempt, but rabbinically forbidden. So something we want to tell you things of Shabbat that you're not allowed to do. Sometimes you're not allowed to do it on the Torah level. Sometimes you're not allowed to do it on the rabbinic level. But something that you're not in any violation of the laws of Shabbat, that we're not interested in telling you when you're not doing anything wrong regarding the laws of Shabbat. So if you're not doing the akira, if you're not uprooting it, and if you're not placing it down, so in essence, you're not doing anything wrong regarding Shabbat. Because you did nothing. You received it. You're the guy on the inside. You received it from the poor man. What did you do? You just received. So what do we mean, Tosfos? So what do you mean, what did you do? But you still did something wrong, but you helped facilitate a sin. It's true. I did nothing. I just received it. The guy was on the inside, and he accepted it. But you helped the guy sin. Without you, if you did not go ahead and catch and accept the delivery from the poor man on the outside, he would not have violated the Shabbat. He violated the Shabbat because you accepted that item from him. So there's something called lifnei iver. In front of a blind person, you can't put a stumbling block. What does that mean? Literally, it sounds like it means you can't put an actual block. But really, it also means you can't help a person sin. Let's say if someone's a Nazir, he said, I'm not going to drink wine. And then the only wine that's available is on the other side of the river. And you bring the wine to him. You gave him the ability to do that sin. You gave him, he's blind because he doesn't understand. He's blinded in realization of what he has to do in life. And you gave him that stumbling block. You helped him. You made him sin. So how do you go ahead and allow? So Tosfos says, Tosfos says, but you know what about if he could get the wine without you? Even if you get the wine without you, let's say it's on the table and you handed it to him, you didn't do a biblical violation because he could get it without you, but you did something. You helped him sin also. So here also, even if the guy could put it down without you, but the fact that you were involved in it, so you did something wrong. To be continued tomorrow about this issue. Yes, that's that.
So it's the case here that you could theoretically take something from your house, walk around the bad man.
In your house, but not to keep where you can't put it public property. No, that's that once you took it with you, that's the violation.
No, but you said you have to put it down.
Right. So all right, very good. If you didn't put it down, so then there wouldn't be. But at a certain point, you're gonna stop. If you stop, that's like putting it down.
So if you stop putting it down, you actually physically.
Exactly. Stop it. Very good. Well, have a great day, Mr. David.
You just run around.
Right. Right.
Let's say
Yeah, he ran around until Shabbat was.
And then you go back home.
Right. But once you right, so now once you came, once you came back home, it's also the fact that you went out into public. And now you're getting into also issues because you went into public, went into private. We'll have to see more about that. And we'll talk about going from private to private, and you went through a public property. That's your case. You went to,
my case.
Right.